Hello, everybody. Welcome to Let's Talk Football. My name is John Halpin alongside Chris Palmer. Chris Palmer, welcome to the start of the 2025 NFL season, my friend.
Yes, sir. And with that, this is year 6 of Let's Talk Football. So thank you again to everybody for joining us for another year of this amazing podcast. My friend, welcome to another year.
I'm excited for this upcoming season. There's so much to talk about. We wanted to make this episode to kind of recap free agency, recap the draft a little bit, give you our thoughts and everything. But there's just so much to dive into this offseason. But I want to pass the torch to my partner, Chris Palmer, because we had a very interesting conversation just before hopping on the mic. And my man has a lot to say. And I'll just pass the torch over to you, my friend. So just get us started.
So, like many of y'all who watched the last episode we did, I said at some point, I'm going to run a promo against Pittsburgh because of everything that has happened timeline-wise is just totally bewildering in terms of what's happening and how it's going. I want to say first and foremost, our draft, I loved it. Everything about it. That is the silver lining in this. At the end of this tunnel, that is where we're at. Is that I loved how we drafted. Let's go back in time a little bit, right? We are starting last year by saying we won the quarterback room with Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. Going into last season, we start Justin Fields. He goes 4-2, and he plays, in those 6 games, he plays 5 playoff teams and beats 4 of them. Doesn't throw the lights out in touchdowns, but he does what he needs to do to help move that team forward and press them down the field. Week 6 comes around. They decide Russell Wilson is healthy. We're going to give him a shot. Got to give the veteran a shot, right? Got to give him a chance. So he goes in, and he wins one. He wins another. I think he won 3 straight. Mm-hmm. Then he brought us to 7-2. I think we lost one, and then we play the Bengals. And he lights the building on fire. The stats defeat me, but he had an amazing game alongside with what we were talking about off air. Aaron Rodgers had a great game somewhere around the same line. It was like the flash of the veterans in those coming weeks. The veterans were playing out of their shoes. Derek Carr was playing great. Russell Wilson was playing great. Aaron Rodgers was playing great. From then on, you and I made a public note on this podcast. We were watching the withering away of the run game in Pittsburgh. And that was what was finding themselves in closer and closer games. And then we started losing games because we were force-feeding the ball, trying to throw it down the field, trying to do this, trying to do that. And all eyes were pointing at Arthur Smith, knowing that he was more of a throwing type of coordinator in Atlanta. That was kind of where I'm not going to say the blame went, but that was where the fingers were pointing as to who was calling these plays. Was maybe it could be Arthur Smith. Understandable. Fast forward to the playoffs. You guys respectfully beat us like children. You abused us all game. You took the teeth of our defense and stomped them out. Respectfully so, we had no business being on the field. We hardly ran the entire second half of that game. That second half of that game is burned into my mind. We did not run that ball more than 5 times. And again, the idea is, now we're stuck with Arthur Smith and his play calling. Fast forward to final meetings. And now you see a room full of the team, Mike Tomlin in the front. Mike Tomlin's doing his Mike Tomlin thing. He's saying his speech. Sounds good. Sounds a lot like Mike Tomlin. But this is all you see. In a full roster of team, listening to Mike Tomlin with that droll face. What does that say to me? What does that say to you, Alvin? Tell me.
Says that it doesn't matter what he's saying because it's just not getting through to the players.
Because over time, it becomes same old story. A lot of these guys have heard this for 4, 5, 6 years straight. Different words, just another monologue as to how much he loves this team, how much he forces his will into this team, the whole nine, how much he is going to lead this team to greatness. And now I am a firm believer that I do think he can still bring a team to a championship. The idea of a healthy divorce is not off the table. I want that to be known very clear. The idea of a healthy divorce, it's starting to peek its head around the corner. Although he hasn't done anything wrong per se, like you said, when it comes to filtering in vetted quarterbacks to a team that's in much need, they're kind of starting to get left behind. We're kind of at the forefront of that, where we've been trying to piece together a quarterback since the absence of Ben Roethlisberger, and even that was 6 or 7 years overdue, with him at the forefront. So this is a very long time coming, what's going on right now with us at quarterback. But now you get rid of, from what a lot of people, myself included, thought was the future of Pittsburgh with Justin Fields. Just flat out letting him go.
Mm-hmm. He's now on the Jets currently.
Congratulations to the Jets. I hope he has a prosperous career. I hope, for Justin Fields' sake, he finally found a team that's ready to invest in him. I think he can play. I think he's being really undervalued.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the truth. Back to Pittsburgh. A full team of people, not one person is enthusiastic during the monologue of Mike Tomlin. The question stands, is Mike Tomlin losing the locker room? Or has he already lost the locker room? My guess is it's turning to that way. Same old story with him. It needs to change. And then the conversation, some articles come out of what happened between Arthur Smith and Russell Wilson during the season. Arthur Smith was apparently calling the run plays, but Russell Wilson was calling the hot routes during the year. On field, changing them to the force-fed passes that we saw in obvious run situations where you know the defense is lining up pass where you can run it down the field. That happened majority of the second half of the season, including that playoff game. Now, again, I'm happy with this draft. The idea of picking up Mason Rudolph is just more of the Tomlin same.
Welcome home, kid.
It's welcome home, and if what we drafted doesn't work out, you're going to get us enough wins. And enough wins is really starting to not taste as good because there's so many teams that are drafting really well and are really creeping through that ladder and are going to make their way into the AFC playoff bracket, and we're going to see ourselves out in very short notice if we don't get it together and get it together fast.
I was going to say, is there more? I thought there was more.
No, that's about it. Because, again, I'm happy with the way we drafted. I think that's steps in the right direction. I think if we pick up Aaron Rodgers, I'll probably fucking blow my lid because we have no need for him. I think the veteran that we pick, being Mason Rudolph, is perfectly fine. He knows the playbook. He knows how to. He's a good teammate. You know, I mean, he knows how to take a back seat when needed. He's done it before. He's done it for Pittsburgh before.
Mhm.
If Will Howard earns that QB1 spot, he knows how to be the teammate that Will Howard will need come mid-season to the late season. You know what I'm saying? So in that sense, I understand.
It's a big leap of faith to really put your trust into a quarterback that in a draft class that had a lot of surprising outcomes of how people rank quarterbacks. Also didn't have high on people's draft boards either, because he did get drafted in the 6th round, and every team passed up on him multiple times too. So there's something there maybe where I understand that he was the quarterback of Ohio State and won the championships, but I hope that his story is not like Stetson Bennett, where you won those championships.
You're great in college, but you're not relevant in the league.
Exactly. So I hope for his sake he actually does get some playing time. I think that for the Steelers, man, to me, and I know I tease you about it a lot, but it's the one name that's just been circling around the Steelers. It's Aaron Rodgers, right? Because as of this recording, he's still not signed to any team. And this is in May. This is May 7th at the moment. So, like, as of right now, he's still not on any team. And to think that where it was kind of portrayed in the media as inevitable, it wound up not being inevitable because both parties are just kind of standoffish on each other. But I think that when it comes to and I just loved like teasing you about it because it's like, yes, the Steelers need a quarterback, right? They clearly need a quarterback. Man, like this would not be a fit.
Don't need one that bad.
It would be they had not learned their lesson since Big Ben's departure. And although they did try with Kenny Pickett, they did try to draft a quarterback. It just wound up just not working out, right?
Forget we also drafted Mason Rudolph.
Did draft Mason Rudolph, and he did have that nice season where he got enough wins, right? But that was also the year. I think that was also the COVID year where he got hit in the helmet with Myles Garrett.
Correct. But again, people also got to remember there was a lot of time in between. Again, it's going to be almost impossible to fill the shoes of a Hall of Famer. Mm-hmm. You have to find someone who can get you there and be able to elevate this team with other leaders. Mm-hmm. I feel like this draft showed that you can find that leadership in other positions.
I hope for their sake they have, right? I told you this, my only criticism about the draft is, well, let me take a step back. For when it comes to at least this year's draft, I couldn't really tell you a lot of names. I knew probably maybe a few college players. Like you watch more college football than I do.
I watched very little last year. I'll be honest with you on that too.
But you still watch more than I do, and like I only knew a few names going into it. The one name I really wanted to see drafted was Genty, and I'm glad he found a home quick. He's off the board quick. But I couldn't tell you a lot of players particularly and how they did in college. But what I can tell you is teams look to draft positions that they feel they need improvement on. Mm-hmm. And so basing it off of just solely the position that they're trying to fill that hole into is an interesting choice by the organization. And that's kind of where I'm seeing where it's like, how self-aware are these teams mm-hmm. and what positions that they take, right? Some, it's very questionable. Like, for instance, for the Steelers, right? They drafted 7 players. 2 out of the 7 were offensive side of the ball. But you and I spoke that, obviously, yeah, they didn't run the ball enough, but even when they were passing, too, their offensive line didn't look that good either.
Correct.
And I think that it was, as nice as it was to get some solid defensive leaders, and defense has never really been that much of a problem with the Steelers. Lately it's been offensive production.
Correct.
And they've had a lot, very, very, few offensive touchdowns, passing touchdowns. It's been very, very dry in there. And I think that I would have liked to have seen them kind of be more self-aware of like, okay, maybe we do need an offensive lineman too to kind of protect either Will Howard or Mason Rudolph.
Yeah.
And it's that's my only criticism, at least with the Steelers with this. But I think that, let me ask you, CP,
Mm.
depending on how this season goes, where do you see it lead to a healthy divorce, as you said earlier?
Like, what do I see? Like, what do you mean? Like,
So
what
what are
type
your
of situation would lead to a healthy divorce?
yes.
Um, I would say it would be an accumulation of things.
Mhm.
It would be somehow losing the grip on TJ Watt and letting him go to another team. That
Mm.
would start a trickle effect. That
Mm.
would probably lead to a negative season. That would probably lead to Cam Hayward retiring. That would probably lead to Baker Fitzpatrick requesting a trade. It would probably create this butterfly effect that would lead to Mike Tomlin losing all control of everything he had, and then the Rooney's looking at him like, "What are you gonna do here? You gotta fix this. Like, this happened because you made it happen.
Mhm.
Everyone followed you to a T, and this is where it led us. So what's going to
Mhm.
happen here? And it's either we need to clean this up or you need to clean this up. Um, so I think it would really be an accumulation of things. Um, yeah, it would be an accumulation of things, and I think it would start with losing T.J. Watt.
So if players start to not want to play for the Steelers, that would have the effect where it's like, even if they do say win and have, like, say they win 10 games this year, but
Mm-hmm.
next year say TJ Watt requests a trade,
That
where do
would
you think that?
lose a lot of the draw, because depending on what happened in the playoffs would lead to the future of T.J. Watt being a Pittsburgh Steeler. That
Well, we
would
know what
really
probably would happen in the playoffs too.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, if that is the same outcome where we have a one-off year, where we go to the playoffs and we get totally blown out, but again, when it comes to TJ Watt, he showed for about 6 games straight that he was done. Went 200 snaps without a defensive stat throughout the rest of the regular season. The fact that
Which
that
is
is a
wild
reality is wild.
to a former defensive player of the year.
Right. To go 6 games worth of defensive snaps, roughly.
For the player that tied Michael Strahan's all-time sack record.
Come on, dude. Like, you want to talk about throwing in the towel and making it public? Like, we have one shot to keep him. And if we wind up losing him, that is going to be the trickle effect that is going to lead to what hopefully would be a healthy divorce with Mike Tomlin and the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I'm not saying I'm against it, because we have seen it work before, i.e., Andy Reid.
Mhm.
He had a healthy divorce with Philly, and he went
Mhm.
and became a legacy coach with Kansas City. And both teams were left no worse off. If it were that type of planet alignment, I'd be okay. Where the Steelers were left in good hands, and he went to a team to elevate. You know what I mean? Think about who he is as a coach, right? He's slow as the news goes, methodical. We're gonna play a slow game type. The
You're going to
Steelers,
play it to my tempo, like
you're
a
gonna
very
play it
control style.
right.
Yeah.
We're gonna constrict you from playing fast. That's not how the Steelers team is starting to build itself. They're becoming faster. They want to
Mhm.
play a more up-tempo speed, and I don't want to say he's restricting that, but he's keeping them to a very core group of plays, a core
Mhm.
group of play style. If it were to come, we would need someone with a faster mindset of play style.
Mhm.
So I would hope that would be a mutual conversation where he went to a team that needed to slow itself down, and a coach was ready to come here and speed us up and get us up to speed on what's happening. So
Mhm.
there was a mutual benefit for both teams, because he will be an all-time coach when it's all said and done, and he still has a lot more elite coaching left in him.
Mhm. Absolutely, and he's well. That's the one thing I really hope for Tomlin's sake, man, is that he's just able to adapt and adapt
He's shown a
with.
very poor case of it lately.
In recent years, it's been very very tough. But at the same point, again, is he the one controlling Russell Wilson calling those hot routes?
No,
He can only do so much, right? But as you and I have talked about before, players are the ones who decide the outcomes of games.
correct.
And I think for it's Tomlin has a proven ideology on his on how he looks at the game of football, and it's proven because again, if you were to retire today, he's a Hall of Fame coach,
Correct.
right? And I think that one thing that separates him and Andy Reid, for instance, too, Andy Reid's willing to adapt, and he's not afraid to adapt. John Harbaugh's not afraid to adapt either, and
Correct.
and like these are the other coaches in the same um in the same tier as Tomlin, right? Like Hall of Fame coaches, right? And but their offenses have changed even though over the last say 5 years, right?
Everything's changed.
Whereas the only thing that's really changed for the Steelers is just
The personnel.
the people wearing the uniforms. But the idea of how to play the game that stayed because of Tomlin. And I mean, again, to his credit, that it is a winning formula. However, it's not a winning formula in the playoffs, and that's the
Yes.
biggest criticism. Where with it's like the biggest drought right now for the Steelers is like just get a playoff win, man. You just got to get a playoff
Yeah.
win, and it's really tough. At least from and obviously I'm not a Steelers fan, but it's really tough to me if I were to put myself in your shoes to have faith that Mason Rudolph and Will Howard could lead this team to at least a playoff win. It's a bigger leap of faith than I'm willing to make for the Steelers, but it's like it's
a lot of things have to go right for
yeah.
a lot of things have to go right. I'm hopeful that Will Howard will be who he was when he won that national championship. You know, I'm hoping that the team will come together. But when it comes to that ideology of Pittsburgh, it usually was our defense is going to be the most dangerous thing on the field.
Mm-hmm.
That illusion was shattered. I don't think that will ever be able to be picked back up and put back together. Not overnight. It won't take one off season to come in and be like, we are still that lethal team. That's not going to happen. You guys crippled us defensively in that playoff game, and the world saw it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Everyone saw it. Every team saw it, the weaknesses in our defense, and that is literally when TJ Watt takes off, our defense is nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not saying that the team that we have isn't good. On paper, we have a very tough defense. Alex Highsmith, DeMonte Casey. We have TJ Watt, Minka Fitzpatrick. We have Joey Porter Jr. We have good pieces. It's just there's something going. Cam Hayward. There's something going on where the wind has been totally taken from everybody on the field, and it starts with TJ Watt. We've been saying it for years. He's the heartbeat of that defense, and he has flatlined. He's flatlining right now, and you can see it that when he flatlines, the team flatlines. Cam Hayward's getting slower. He can't carry it. He's taking a lesser role this year. He said that he's going to be more of a mentor for the younger guys, which is great. That's why we went and we got an absolute dog first round for D tackle. It'll be his successor. That's all fine and dandy. We went and we found another edge rush, which makes me nervous. It makes me nervous that they know that the future with TJ Watt as a Pittsburgh Steeler is not definite. It is totally finite, and it is going to come to the end of this year to determine if he will continue his career as a Pittsburgh Steeler. So they are drafting for the possibility that we will not have him in a couple of years to come.
I think for the Roonies, right? Because this rebuild for the Steelers it's coming, right? It's
Well,
coming.
we're neck deep in it. We've been neck deep in it since Ben Roethlisberger retired.
I think
Is when
it's
it started.
I think the Steelers have been of the mindset of reload rather than rebuild. And that's why it's like they're just trying to, again, it's not a complete rebuild as, we've seen with other teams, right? Where it's like sending away your best players, right? Getting draft capital, getting in other players, and because it takes about what, like we've talked about, 2 to 3 years to like fully rebuild, right? They're in the midst of it, but I don't think that they've really made the plunge yet. They haven't, like they've been teetering on it. They're just like
they've been treading
no,
with deep water for a very long time.
They've been treading lightly because they're like, if we just find the right quarterback, we can just we'll be there. And it's like,
that's not how it
really
works.
No, that's not how it works. And I think for the rebuild for the Steelers is coming sooner than later. Like the big rebuild, right?
Right, the overhaul is coming.
The question for the Roonies is Mike Tomlin going to stay long enough to be a part of this rebuild? And
you see,
that's a tough question to ask because it's like
it's hard to say no. It's hard to say no because of the whole negative season thing. You never seen in 18 years, you've never seen a negative year, and that's something you will never be able to say again. You will probably not be able to say it again in this lifetime for a coach to go 18 years and say I've been above 500 or better my entire life. That's unheard of.
And
but
a ring too, because he
does have
his
with
ring.
a ring. But at the same time, it's like when you get past that and you're like, okay, you've also been going on a 12-year playoff drought. You haven't had a playoff win in 12 years.
Yeah.
You haven't been to the Super Bowl since your second appearance. And that was an appearance. And you lost to the quarterback you want to pick up.
Well, was it the last time that they made a conference title game was 2015 season? Yeah, 2016-ish. They played the Patriots in that conference title. Then since then they have not won a game in the playoffs.
That's what I'm saying. So
it's just crazy. It's absolutely crazy.
Right, we're going on 11 seasons without a playoff win. So it's like, come on.
The standard is the standard, and that's been the standard for the last 10 years.
So if the standard is we're not going to win a playoff game, and we're just going to keep throwing pieces together and keep putting Band-Aids on a sinking ship, do we let the ship go down with the captain and we start new?
That's the question.
That's the question.
Only the Roonies can really make that decision. It's like,
and it feels fitting that the Roonies would have to answer the question about a coach like Mike Tomlin, because they had to answer it about Chuck Noll, they had to answer it about Bill Cowher, they will have to answer it about Mike Tomlin. People forget that Bill Cowher was on thin ice before he won that Super Bowl. He
was, and
he was on thin ice. They were getting ready to get rid of him. So maybe a little show of the door, like not necessarily throw out of the door, but a show of it, be like, that is a reality for you. Maybe that'll be something that'll let Tomlin take the grips on the standard as the standard thing and start, like you said, adapting to what he sees happening to his team organically. This team is really, it can adapt and turn into something great with the pieces that we have. But if you keep constricting them at every end, they're going to not want to play for you, especially if you do that alongside you tell them how much you're investing in them, because those two don't correlate. You can't tell me you're investing in me and you're telling me how much like you accept us as a team when we're trying to show you what we're great at, and you're telling us to pump the brakes. We're going to keep to this mold and this formula, and it's going to get us this far, where that might be able to get us further, or it might not work. Like you said, that's the treading part of this rebuild, where you're afraid to test the untapped waters. where it's let's go have some fun. Like all these teams that have been in rebuild mode for the past couple of years that we've been doing this podcast, where it's the main thing that we say is they have to embrace that rebuild, feel it, lose and lose together. And the Steelers are no different, even though they are my team. They are no different. If they are to rebuild, they need to embrace every bit of it. You need to lose, and you need to lose games bad, and you need to lose games together, and then you need to come up. If that is what needs to happen, then that is what needs to happen. This winning enough games to get blown out in the playoffs it's almost worse than playing bad during the regular season. Because you play just well enough to get a middle of the road draft pick. You don't play bad enough to get a high round. You don't play good enough to really not need one. You play just good enough to need one and not have room to get it. And then we don't move any key pieces in the offseason. We don't work our draft picks at all to try and draft up. We stay where we are. We get one huge piece and overpay for him with no quarterback in the room.
DK Metcalf, right? Is that
right? DK Metcalf,
yeah.
A great veteran crash out.
I mean, personally, I like DK Metcalf. I
love Metcalf as a receiver, but I don't. He's a crash out, just like George Pickens was.
And we say was because as of today,
he is a Dallas Cowboy for literally like a ham sandwich.
For a third round next year, then the second round of the year prior, or the year after that. But
yeah, it was for chump change.
I think with all the decisions that the Steelers have made,
and Tomlin led that. He led that trade.
I think if there's any year now, I mean, even if Aaron Rodgers does sign with them, and even if he doesn't, I think this year is going to be very telling for the Steelers. And it's going to be one of those where it's like, if you do bad, that's okay. And that
no one expects you to be great.
It may be again, it may be good to ultimately have that losing season and to know what it's like to lose. The teams that are the teams that are really dominant now and the really, really good teams that we see in today's day and age, the Chiefs, the Lions, the Eagles, the Ravens, the Bills, all those teams had to learn how to lose.
They learned quick.
And when you lose games, right? The great ones will channel that into better results. Like for instance, Philly. Like I want to even take it back to say that last year with Carson Wentz, that was they went 4-11-1. It was
that was an interesting year watching the offensive line physically give up on a quarterback on the offense. Remember when they turned shoulder on him? You remember that?
Yeah. Oh yeah. But what they do, you draft Jalen Hurts, right? After you draft Jalen Hurts, right, you get Nick Sirianni. You start that rebuild. You get to a Super Bowl. You lose the Super Bowl. Then you have a rough year the following year, but you get better in the offseason. You draft well, right? You draft all the pieces.
And drafting well for years.
Look, now the Super Bowl trophy is on the other side of Pennsylvania. So
right.
It's not impossible, but again, I think for the Steelers, in order to be successful, they need to learn how to lose. And this year could be that year. It could not, but we'll see, obviously, once the season happens. It doesn't help that we do play the NFC North this year.
That doesn't help one bit. That doesn't help one bit.
And we do play, what was it, the AFC West this year, I think? Oh, no, sorry, the AFC East. So the Bills.
That really doesn't help either.
Dolphins. It's pretty rough. But,
it's pretty rough because listen, don't count the Patriots out. They're gonna play hard. They're going to play hard.
They might be a really improved team this year after all their acquisitions.
There's going to be a
in this
couple of them
offseason.
this year. Like,
Oh,
looking
yeah.
at this year's draft, it's going to be very interesting. A lot of teams did really well.
Yeah, I was gonna say a lot of teams did very well in the draft this year. This offseason in general was very interesting, but CP, I know you're a little bit more into the draft than I am. I was gonna say, would you be able to just kind of tell everyone at least your thoughts on it, and I'll piggyback off it because I have a few, but I want to see where your mind was at when it comes draft time.
Well, for starters, this year, like you said, everyone really was very they were coherent and they were very knowledgeable of where they needed to go. Because last year there were some real head scratchers when it came to who drafted what.
Mm-hmm.
So like last year and this year, I went into the draft grades for the NFL. And last year, I remember, if I'm not mistaken, the Giants had the lowest grade last year with a D-.
I know we also graded them.
We also graded
them an F.
you gave them an F, but I gave them a D- as well. I thought that was accurate because they drafted nothing that they needed and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
They may have had the greatest turnaround since last year when it comes to drafting. They had an A grade this year. They drafted in every way they needed to this year.
Who are some of the names?
Of course,
they drafted
Jackson Dart, Abdul Carter. Abdul Carter is an absolute animal,
and they got him 3rd overall.
And let me tell you, the second best running back on that draft board skipped to the 4th round with Cam Scatterbo.
To the Giants, yeah.
To the Giants. He, in my opinion, he was the second best running back on that draft board behind Ashton Genty. Congratulations going to the Las Vegas Raiders. Mm-hmm. Those two were the best running backs in the league, in the college, and it wasn't close, in my opinion. But good on the Giants for really letting him slip through the cracks, keeping under the radar, because you guys picked up an absolute bulldog. You want to watch how he ran in Arizona State, dude? He was an animal.
I saw some clips, actually. It's actually pretty impressive.
Like, he's the physical embodiment of a pit bull. Like, you just look at how he looks. He just looks angry all the time.
He has the running style of Doug Martin to me, where he's small and compact, but he's physical, and he's not afraid to be physical. Doug Martin on the Buccaneers from 2010s and stuff. Again, compact, muscular, and surprisingly can be either a power running back or a speed back, depending on how fast he accelerates.
Right, he has breakout speed. He's not afraid of contact, and it's just. And again, it's you reworked your line, you reworked who you got all around. It's a really good pickup. Another really good shout out. I'll go give it to Carolina. They got a B-. That was the lowest grade for the year, was B- this year. Mm-hmm. So everybody across the board drafted great. In Carolina, they went ahead and they got another big receiver. They got a big, tall. He seems like 6'3". He got a giant for receiver.
Bryce Young's got to see him over the O-line.
Well, yeah, he's so short he can't help it. But
I mean, I'm with that. I think, to me, when I'm looking at the draft, I think there's a few teams that really made drastic improvements. But I kind of want to talk about the one that kind of baffled me, and we spoke about it a little bit before here, is the Saints. I am just very perplexed on the direction of where the Saints are going, but then I realized Archie Manning is coming next year. And I'm looking I look at the draft and I look at everything that they've been doing with free agency. The Saints, this is also the time where they're actually starting to get a little bit more cap space because they've been in cap hell for years, even after Drew Brees' contract, with the contract with Derek Carr and everything like that. They've really put themselves in cap hell. Now they're going to have an ugly year this year. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, it feels like they're getting a lot of players for depth so that they can keep them for when the time comes that they're going to start this rebuild. And it looks like this rebuild is probably going to happen this year, impending, for the Saints. And I think that's it's interesting because in the first round, they didn't choose any quarterback. In fact, they didn't choose any quarterback in the draft.
Right, they didn't
Actually,
draft a quarterback. Did they?
sorry. They did draft a quarterback. Slough, I think his name was.
With the
But
kid
even
from Missouri?
still, I think so.
No.
But even still, it's like
No.
the
I'm
choices
listening.
that the Saints made of not wanting to, I guess, reload and embrace a rebuild. I think that's a very interesting choice for them to make, and I'm kind of glad they're doing it because the Saints definitely need it. And I will say because ever since Tom Brady and Baker Mayfield came to the Bucks, uh, it's been all Bucks in the NFC South. I'd like to see the Saints be a little bit more competitive, and we saw a little something in Carolina last year. Let's see if it actually matriculates into something. I think
I
that
would hope.
Carolina drafting a wide receiver, that's what they need. The Falcons, I mean,
They didn't draft
finally they
bad. That was
drafted
B minus.
defense. No, they went with one of the hottest edge rushers in the first round. So they
Mm-hmm.
actually kind of, I guess, learned from their mistake last year, where it was like, oh, maybe we should have got a defensive guy to actually be on the D line.
Well, you need someone who can stop the quarterback. That's kind of
Exactly.
like I was telling you offline, it's like the blueprint was kind of changed when it comes to how you use your draft picks. As the necessity of QB was, there were better players that were worth that first round draft pick.
Mm-hmm.
That helped better your team. That could help really get you need someone who can stop the quarterback on the other
Mm-hmm.
side. If you can grab the best one on the board, while pretty much the entire quarterback room is on the board, go and get the best edge rush. So I understand that totally.
Mm-hmm.
But
I
this really is going back to New Orleans. I agree with this is just I don't know. It's like I was saying off air. It's the sad story of Derek Carr.
no, it's
The sad story, man. He is such a sad career.
yeah. I feel for Derek Carr, man, because now at this point in time, it's like the Saints are looking to be really bad next year. At least from where I'm looking at, like they look to be really really bad this year, and that's okay. That means that they're going to rebuild. But the question is, what happens to Derek Carr? And honestly, you and I are probably like, well, Saints are probably going to rebuild with him. They're probably going to try to get under his contract, and he's probably just going to be a backup after this year, if that,
Or he'll retire.
or he'll retire. So
Odds are
they
he's not going
actually
to play at all this year.
Saints actually did draft a quarterback in the second round. His name is Tyler Slough from Louisville.
Right. I looked at him. I remember actually watching him get drafted. Now that you say it,
Mm-hmm.
He's big enough where it's like he could. Oh shit! Him and I share a birthday. He's born September 28th, 1999. I'm
He's
4 years
younger
older
than
than
you,
him.
man.
I'm
I
4
was
years older
saying.
than him. Jesus
We're
Christ!
old, mate. Mate, we're gonna be 30 this year. We're fucking old.
I know. But that was odd to see my birthday underneath someone else's name. That was odd.
Like, oh shit! Oh shit! I will say one more thing about the draft while I'm thinking about it. It's funny. I remember you and I when we had the Super Bowl recap, and I remember telling you it was like expect a lot of teams this year to do what Philly did and go really shore up that defensive line.
Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what
And we're gonna
happened.
see. Well, I want to pick the one team. I want to call out the one team that actually did this, and it makes sense. Why? Because Philly was able to beat the Chiefs with their strong defensive line. Who's the one team that really needs to beat the Chiefs in the playoffs?
Go ahead.
Besides, but I was gonna say the Bills. And the
Right.
Bills, their first 5 picks were defensive picks, and I think what was it? How many of them were on the line? Let me see this right now, because
Like 3 out of 5.
like, yeah, and it's just absolutely just yeah. So start with the cornerback, D tackle, edge rusher, D tackle, cornerback.
Yeah, so 3 out of 5 were in your front 7, and then you got 2 secondary.
Yeah, and then they got tight end, quarterback, lineman, wide receiver. But it's like your first 5 picks were right on defense. We're like, we got to stop these
Right.
motherfuckers. And
Well,
and honestly, again, for the teams that are good and are just a few steps away from really becoming champions, leaning into like defensive like personnel, especially on the line, is a sound investment to make.
correct. I agree 100%. And, that's why we watched these quarterbacks drop. We watched these quarterbacks fall to later rounds. Not every quarterback was taken by the end of the first round.
Mm-hmm.
Quarterbacks felt it's almost unheard of for a quarterback to be drafted in the second and third round. 2 quarterbacks were drafted between both.
Mm-hmm.
One was drafted in the 6th round that won the national championship. 2 were drafted in the 5th round. It's
Mm-hmm.
just it's just the way. I think it's the way this draft went. It was just there's more focal pieces that help a team elevate than just
Mm-hmm.
the quarterback, and I think that's starting to resonate with a lot of teams. Where it's we have the quarterback, but we don't have a linebacker that can make a difference. We don't have a difference maker at safety. We don't have a difference maker at nose tackle. We don't have a difference maker at center. Like through over the past couple of years in like really rapid time, we've seen highlighting glimpses of why certain positions are really important. Like Andrew Whitworth when he was the tackle for the Rams. Jason Kelsey as a center. Then you start seeing the edge rushes. That's always more so been on an important side, but I kind of shifted to an offensive lane. But then the tight end started showing more importance, and now you got pulling guards, and now everyone pays attention to where do I need a focal point, and it doesn't always have to be quarterback.
Yep. And you're right, because leaders are not just quarterbacks. Leaders are any position on the field. And
Correct.
that's not something to be overlooked, especially in a class where there's a lot of great defensive leaders and a lot of the teams that are good got better. And that's
Correct.
why there's a lot of teams are really satisfied with, a lot of, as you said, the draft grades are really good this year because they didn't really overthink it. Because there's just a lot of, there's maybe not flashy names, but there's a lot of really good, solid football players that you can take in any round. Ravens
Correct.
had 5 6th-round draft picks. And
Right.
so it's like, we're just going to take quality players. And it's like, they're going to come to us. One of them is also our new kicker. By the way, we cut Justin Tucker since our last video. So he pulled the Deshaun Watson allegations, stuff like that. So anyway,
He's going to be a Cleveland Brown
welcome.
by the middle of the year.
Oh, he is. But I just want to welcome Tyler Loop as our new kicker.
I hope he does you well.
I hope he does as well. I mean, I think, again, a lot of teams did very well and a lot of great defensive players. It's great to see them get their due and get their credit. Defense is not the, again, glamorous position. But if this past Super Bowl is any indication, defense wins championships. And it's like, but you need the right guys. But
Right.
you need the right guys that buy into, the team's culture. And I think there's a lot of teams that are really good about. Like for instance, I'll briefly touch on just the Ravens. At least in the first round, we drafted Malachi Starks from Georgia. I had no idea who the fuck this guy was until we drafted him. I'll be honest. But looking at his tape, I'm like, wow, this is the perfect complementary piece to our other great safety, Kyle Hamilton.
Yes.
And so we have Starks as a ball hawk and just stay in the backfield, and then we could flex Hamilton to wherever we want. And so it's like we leaned into our strengths. And a lot of teams, like not just the Ravens, leaned into their strengths this year. I mean, there's a few where it was kind of questionable. I do also want to say briefly, at least like just because I have so many different players. I have 3 players in mind. Cam Ward, I'm glad he went to the Titans. Titans made a good move there, and it was very expected to be, but I'm very glad that Titans are making the right decision to get a worthy quarterback to invest in. Because from everything I've seen with Cam Ward, he just looks like a
He
fucking
just loves
pro.
football. He just looks
He
like a
loves
football player.
and he looks like a fucking pro, and I'm excited for him in this kid's career. Jags with taking Travis Hunter at the 2nd overall pick.
Taking it from the Browns.
From the Browns, which is very interesting, and I want to get to the Browns after this, but I will say this about the Jags. Jags have no excuse anymore. Like the Trevor Lawrence and the Jags, they have no excuse anymore. They need, if Trevor Lawrence is that quarterback that he was prospected to be, you need to at least have them in contention of the division by the end of the year. No, like I think that after that, then it's fair to look at Trevor Lawrence and be like, man, I know you haven't won as much as you should have. With the addition of Travis Hunter, their offense should be like young, rejuvenated, fast, and I don't know. What are your thoughts on Travis Hunter and the Jags?
Well, first of all, I think it was a great steal for them to trade up for Travis Hunter. I think Travis Hunter to the Jags looks so much better than Travis Hunter to the Browns.
Mm-hmm.
How do I feel about him? I think he's an incredible athlete. I think he's one of the best athletes to come off of the draft. My one gripe with him is that he really has himself convinced that he's going to be able to play a full career on both sides of the ball. Mm-hmm. And as it's a valiant idea that you're going to do it. And if you want to try it, go for it. But like we say all the time, there's 100% chance you're going to get injured in pro football.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just playing one side of the ball.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to happen. And at some point, your season's going to be over due to injury. Mm-hmm. So, in my opinion, if he doesn't decide one side of the ball or the other, he's going to slash his career by a long shot. Now, out of the 2 positions that he plays, personally, I would rather him as a defensive back. I think he's a lockdown corner, and he's also a free-flying safety. You know what I'm saying? He can play cornerback, he can play safety, he can play blitzing safety. He is a great defenseman. Mm-hmm. A lot of people see him better as a wide receiver. He is a very good receiver. He could help Trevor Lawrence in that regard. Mm-hmm. I think him not deciding what side of the ball play is going to hurt them more than help. Mm-hmm. Because he's going to hurt himself. He's going to be playing one side of the ball fatigued at some point throughout the year. Remember, this is the league of attrition. These kids are coming into a season double as long as they've ever played. From the age of 13 to now, they've only ever played 8 games, 12 games maximum with playoffs. Mm-hmm. Now they're playing 17 games before playoffs. And you expect to play both sides of the ball. It would not surprise me at all if I'd say right before the trade deadline of this upcoming year, that Travis Hunter comes out and he dedicates one side of the ball. He's going to try, and he's going to try it during practice, and he's going to play certain games at one position, certain games at another. Mm-hmm. But by the middle of the road of this year, he will have dedicated himself to one, I feel. Simply to save his body. He's going to realize that it is just, and there's no harm in it, that it respectfully is too much for the body to handle, to play both sides of the ball during select games. I understand one game you play a receiver, one game you play as a DB. You can't necessarily play both during both games. Like during the same game, you have to register on your way in. But if somehow it works, most power to you, because we will not see that again. That will be a generational talent.
I'm curious to see where it goes, but I agree with you. I think that he'll probably make a decision to stay on one side of the ball, and that's fine. And I think
Right, there's no harm in that.
and I
Everyone
think that
does it.
no matter what side of the ball he decides, I think that he will make a difference for the team. I just hope that for the Jags' sake, it would be so disheartening to just have another collapsed season before it even begins. The Jags have a plethora of, and everyone loves to throw the word talent. They have a great amount of talent there, but winning is going to be very hard for them. But the ironic part is they're in a division where it's pretty winnable compared to all the other divisions out there. Like the AFC North, that's tough. AFC West,
Tougher.
man. AFC East, good luck getting through the Bills.
The South is wide open.
South is open. And like the Texans, although they won it last year, they didn't win it they were pretty slow by the end of the year. And
The loss to Tank Dell was pretty rough. That definitely deflated them for the rest of the year, especially seeing how he's probably going to be out the remainder of this year too, due to recovery issues. So on that note, I'm going to give a shout out to Tank Dell, hope for a better recovery, but again, understanding that there is life after football. So just worry about recovery and then focus on football second.
Absolutely. And the Texans, I think that although as good as they are and well assembled as they are, and I love D'Amico Ryan and CJ Stroud, I think that that's a great combo between the two of them. They're not locked into the playoffs as well as say like the Chiefs are, as we can kind of imagine. The Ravens, the Bills, those are probably like the top dogs in the AFC, right? And then whoever you want to kind of get in there, but the South is still very open.
It fluctuates. It's a good fluctuating division. I like that one.
Exactly. And so now it would be very disheartening if not only they had a disappointing season, but the Titans did better than them. That for the Jags,
that would be very sour.
That would be very sour. So the Jags this year, it's like, look, if you're going to make this jump and steal this generational talent player, you better land some results. And
well, I don't mean to cut you off. Mm-hmm. The idea of the generational talent, right? That started with Trevor Lawrence.
I know. That's
Think about that for a second.
Yeah.
And I think it ends with Travis Hunter. You know what I'm saying?
It could.
Like, if that's what I'm saying. If Travis Hunter decides, I'm going to thug this out and I'm going to play both sides of the ball all year, and he gets through a full season and he helps elevate this team to, let's say, a playoff appearance. But then you look over on Trevor Lawrence's stat sheet and he's still having a clunker. He's still having a relatively unimpressive year as a quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm saying. The generational talent tag, it started with Lawrence and it ends with Hunter. It's Trevor Lawrence. He's good. I'm not going to say he's not good. He's very athletic. He can throw the ball downfield. He has a strong arm. But I've had the same issues with him now that I've had for years. He's not much different than Daniel Jones statistically.
Mm-hmm.
Daniel
Jones is now a cult.
And Daniel Jones, the third string quarterback. So it's like you said, it's now. Like there is no now or never. It's now. It needs to be now, or you will probably wind up on a different team.
Again, I just want them to at least be in contention towards the end of the year. I'm not even asking for them to win the division.
At least be in the conversation for an appearance.
Be at least alive for a playoff berth. And that's it.
Right.
If you're close to it, so be it, right? But it's like at least it shows us that you have the capability. You have something there. You have the foundation there. And now I think that this season is really going to shine a light on Jacksonville, where it's like, do they have the foundation? Or was this foundation just not meant to be? Now, it's going to be tough because this is a first-year head coach, and Andrew Cohn. Duval. But he's you saw that clip,
He's
right?
since learned how to do it right.
I know, but that first press conference,
The
is
first
fucking
one was
hilarious.
terrible. That first one
Duval.
really, if that was a tone setter, it was you're fired. But thankfully, you learned by your third interview. It took two, but you learned by the third. So I'm proud of you for learning.
And but he's an OC. Yeah, he's a
Right.
former OC. So
Right. So hopefully he knows how to get a team on the same page to work together and learn how and go about winning games.
Yeah.
You're an offensive-minded coach with a team that's ready to win on offense. They're ready.
Yeah, they have a plethora of young talent there.
They have a plethora of young talent. I think that problem still lies with the offensive line a little bit.
I do agree with you. Yeah.
Trevor Lawrence is still kind of running for his life, so I'll give him that. I give him the leniency that he is owed when it comes to that team. I give him. The problem is what comes with him. Is what came with him to Jacksonville was that he's gonna outshine all of the issues and he's gonna bring us there. And then he doesn't. And then you pay him like he did. But he didn't. And then again, I give the leniency for all the injuries that occurred throughout the year. I get it. Injuries happen. Sometimes you wind up a skeleton of your team by the end of the year, and there's nothing Trevor Lawrence can do about that. I give him that leniency. But that doesn't excuse poor play at full health. Doesn't excuse that. It doesn't excuse not being in the conversation when you're as healthy as you can be. And again, the same argument is for Pittsburgh, that come the end of the year, it's people look at you on the schedule and it's not there's no threat to it. There's no angst to it. There's no over preparation for Jacksonville right now. There's no over preparation for Pittsburgh. There's a couple of teams where you can pretty much tell there's no over preparation type. It's we're gonna do our normal preparation. We're gonna go out and we're gonna show that we're better, and that's what happens to Jacksonville a lot, and that usually coincides with the offensive line. But even when they're clicking, Trevor Lawrence doesn't have anybody on his page with him.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully, with this addition of Travis Hunter, hopefully he finds someone on the same page. Hopefully, there's a lot of hopefullys with Jacksonville's.
Mm-hmm.
But they dropped a lot of guys this year. In my opinion, is probably to help pay for that Trevor Lawrence contract. I haven't seen anything about a restructure. I said it last year, I'll say it this year. I feel like that's probably in order. There should probably be a restructure to help bring in some key pieces for both sides of the ball, whether it be an all-pro lineman, whether it be an all-pro tackle, something to really help reinforce that wall that you need for Trevor Lawrence. Mm-hmm. I think that is imminent when they realize that they really don't have much to work with after paying him. Because they really don't. They don't have much.
Yeah. And that's why a lot of their talent now lies within the rookies. Because you still have them on rookie deals. So that's why they're really trying to get a lot of young guys to surround Trevor Lawrence. So because those are the ones that they're able to afford to surround him with. So
yeah, but as the old saying goes, youth and exuberance doesn't beat old age and treachery.
Exactly. So it's like, I think that it's like, come later on, it's like, if the Jags even do, like, say, make it to the playoffs, right? It's going to be a tough time for them to go against, say,
the season playoff veterans of this league.
Yeah, but even still, I think that if they do make it to the playoffs, I think that that's a hopeful sign for the Jags. If it's not, like, if they are not even anywhere near it, if Mikey comes on to this podcast next year and come week 4 says this is for the season, then yeah, that's for
right. If you have another
that's not a good sign.
If you have another 5-game season where it's like we are mathematically eliminated after week 7, like that, another total throwaway year based due to injury, what have you, And that also goes around the entire coaching staff, medical staff, the whole nine, keeping this team conditioned and ready. That I don't put on Trevor Lawrence's shoulders either. I want that to be known very clear. That is a foundational franchise thing. That if come week 7 or week 5, in your mind, you're thinking we are playing for the year because we have 4 losses on our belt. I understand 4 losses is not a good look, but it's still, you could still come back from it. You can. It's tough, but it can happen. You can see the turnarounds. They've happened before.
Yeah.
The turnarounds have happened. They've happened late in the year. They happened early in the
Jags,
year.
though. That's
but not to the Jags and not with Trevor Lawrence.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm getting at. It has not happened with him. So if he has been the focal point of Jacksonville since he's come into this league, what is he going to do for us? Well, he's given you, 5 years now?
Just about, yeah.
Of throwaway seasons?
Well, he had the one good year 3 years ago.
Right. So on year 2 of his rookie deal, he had a good enough year to be in the conversation, still didn't make it.
And it sucks because it could go any which way, right?
Mm-hmm.
But man, by week 4, Mikey's like, well, this is for the season. It's funny because when we had him on, we're like, maybe not, but he was right.
He was absolutely right. He had that one head on.
And it's like,
gotta give him that.
And it's like, I just hope that this year the leniency for a lot of people, so long as he's healthy, the leniency's off. Then say, look, we got to actually make some hard decisions here.
Exactly. There's got to be a little tough love coming out of Jacksonville now.
So, hey, there's a lot that can happen from now until January next year. So
this is the beauty of this being the off season, is that everything we're talking about can be total bullshit. That's the beauty of it, is that we could be totally wrong, and that's the beauty of being fans. Is that we don't have these conversations. We don't have the conversations that make these things important. You know what I'm saying? But this conversation it's just you and I. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. It's those thoughts of just, as a casual fan, right? It's just nice to just exercise those thoughts and think of like, what could happen, right? And that's why the off season is so great, because it gives every team that sense of hope and that sense that we can be better next year, or we can do the right things next year, right? Or we can grow next year. And it really instills a sense of optimism towards everyone. Look, spring's in full bloom right now. The flowers are blooming, and with the weather's getting nicer, it won't be that long before football season is right around the corner.
It's right around the corner, and dude. It's May.
Exactly. It is May 7th.
OTAs start in June.
Aaron Rodgers is in some cave in Peru doing ayahuasca. And we're getting ready for mini camps.
Mini camp starts, and for some, I think for 2 or 3 teams, mini camp started already.
Mm-hmm.
I think for the Giants, mini camp started. I think for the Browns, mini camp started.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's it as of right now. But most mini camp starts middle of June.
Mm-hmm.
Then July hits, and then by the middle of August, we got preseason.
Yeah.
So we're right around the corner, man. And this is the fun part, because this is when the on paper conversations start. You know how we always say, on paper, this team is this team is that.
Yeah.
This is when the on paper conversations start. And this is when the fun conversations start on how good we could be, how good this could happen, how this could go wrong. This is why I love this time of year.
Oh, it's great. Last thing I want to talk to you about is a name.
The only name that mattered this NFL draft, apparently.
Shedeur Sanders. So I'll tee it off for CP, but for those of you who don't know, Shedeur Sanders is the son of Deion Sanders.
One of the sons
of Deion Sanders of Hall of Fame cornerback for throughout the 90s and everything. Prime time, everyone knows Deion, right? Shedeur Sanders is a quarterback from, what was it, Colorado,
First
where
Jackson State, then
Jackson
Colorado.
State, then Colorado, where his dad was coaching, and now, or yeah, no, he's still there, right? He's still in Colorado.
He's still
Or is
there.
he's still
He
there.
decided to stay in Colorado.
Okay, but Shedeur was expected to be a first-round draft pick this year, and this was the biggest slide in probably the history of the NFL, where it's like he was expected to go within the first round. This guy was drafted in the 5th round by the Cleveland Browns. Now, the Browns had the 2nd overall pick. They could have taken him right then and there.
But they traded it away.
But they traded away to Jacksonville Jacksonville getting Travis Hunter. But Shedeur really, really fell there. But CP, I mean, you know the answer to this, you know at least some kind of part of this. Why did Shedeur Sanders fall so hard?
Well, there's a lot, and I mean a lot to unpack here.
Mm-hmm.
For starters, I want to congratulate him on being drafted. I hope he does have a prosperous career. Truly, I do. But there's a lot of reasons, both on the field and off the field, that led to this conclusion. No, it was not any type of conspiracy from the owners. No, it was not a blackballing. It wasn't that. Him being the son of Deion Sanders already put him in the network. It's what it is. You strip away everything, right? This is how I broke it down to a lot of people. You strip away everything. You strip away that it's football. You strip away that it's the pros. It is someone applying for a company with great credentials and a great rep. You're in the network. They just need you to do A, B, and C throughout the interview process. But at every which case that you are given, that you're told that you should do this, you say no. And you start playing your hand as if you're above the company. And I'll get to that in a second. But you talk your game. Let's start with the combine. No, let's start with the Senior Bowl. You didn't participate. We can start there. You didn't participate in the Senior Bowl. Now, you don't have to. It's optional. But now, again, you are considered a top prospect. This is your chance to play All-Americans. These are the kids that you're going to have on the draft board with you. Again, optional. You decide. A lot of
good defensive players, too.
A lot of good defensive players. You will have to play against Cam Ward. You will have to play against these other quarterbacks that are prospected to go around the same time as you were. And you decide, no, I don't want to. I decided not to. Okay, fine. You decided not to participate in the combine. Now, you and I, we kind of disagree on the importance of the combine. Mm-hmm. But that's neither here. The importance of the combine stands where this is the best chance that you can showcase your athleticism at a fundamental level. So in terms of scouting, that is extremely important. How well you do the fundamentals at the best of conditions. You decided, no, I'm okay. I'm not going to participate. Again, technically optional. But again, you're a top prospect. You make a cameo appearance to the combine while not participating. You get axed on the podium if you think not participating will hurt you. Your response is, with more words than what I remember, my tape proves what I can do on the field. Haters have always hated the Sanders name. Do you know my father? Now, let's let that one marinate for a second. You just asked people if they know your father. Of course we know your father.
I've heard of him.
Your father is one of the greatest defensemen of all time. It's just what it is. Everyone knows who your father is. Are you telling me that you're a part of your dad's legacy? So now you now you also come out and you say, if you don't intend on changing your culture, don't draft me. So now you put yourself on a higher pedestal than most people. Usually that gets bestowed on people. This guy can change the culture. This guy can do that. That gets earned through work. You don't come in with that precedent set that this is what I'm going to do. If you don't want that, don't draft me. So he doesn't do the senior day. He doesn't do the combine. He shows up to the combine. He talks about his dad's legacy. In the same conversation, he talks about saying what he's going to do, and don't draft him if you don't want that. So you put yourself on a pedestal while talking about your dad's legacy. You talk about what you and your father did in terms of Jackson State and Colorado. So let's turn to the tape of how he did in Jackson State and Colorado. And now you look at the games he played that they won, and at a quick glance, you see he's playing well. He has very high percentage completion rating. He has plenty of touchdowns. But then you strip it away, and you see the programs that they're playing. They're not at the level of pro status-esque, because there's always the hierarchy of the NCAA where most of players get drafted from, Ohio State, Alabama. So you look into those teams, the Pac-12 teams, and you look at how he played. He's only got one win against those teams.
1-7 against those teams, if I'm mistaken.
Correct. Right? 1-7. And now you look at that accuracy trophy that he got. 71, 73% completion rating or something. Great.
It's really fucking good. Yeah.
Your yards per attempt were under 9 yards. So you dinked and dunked your way down the field. You didn't throw the ball down the field. Mm-hmm. Now you say you didn't have a run game. But you dig into the film a little bit more, you watch you're throwing off your back heels. You're stuttering your throws. You're doing things that reactive quarterbacks wouldn't do. Things that, now I understand the offensive line wasn't great, but you're also not putting yourself in positions to succeed as a quarterback. So as scouts, they watch that film and they pick apart and they see things that you could have shown you can do in the combine. See where I'm getting with this? The things that were wrong in your film, you could have shown at the combine. You didn't show up to the combine. So now you have your film. Now, it came out later on during the interview process now of where we're at, that there were a couple anonymous GMs, one of which actually came out. It was Joe Schoen from the Giants, came out and backed up the words that they were saying about how he was unprofessional going into these interviews. Joe Schoen actually came out and said when he showed up for his interview, he wore so much cologne. This is actually funny. This is hysterical. He wore so much cologne, he suggested that they go for a walk versus sit in the office and talk. He had headphones. He showed up with a posse of about 10 people for the interview. He had headphones around his neck with music playing the entire time. Now, they asked him about a specific package from college that didn't really work well. I don't remember the name of it. I think it was like a scat pack or something. And Shedeur's reaction towards the questioning of that defensiveness, apprehension, not wanting to try and fix the issues, that took a toll. And then they handed him a bunch of plays that had deliberate issues with them. And Shedeur Sanders could not find the issues. And when asked about that, got defensive and reactive again. Those are all things that were needed to be shown during the things you didn't show up to. And now in the interview process, you're showing mentally, professionally, you're not good. You're not willing to do it professionally. Mentally, you're showing that you're not, I don't want to say you're not smart enough, but on the fly, you can't figure it out when other quarterbacks can. And now, again, you look at the tape, and now you see all the glimpses of people saying, you're just another quarterback. So while you were networked and hyped to be this, all the way up here, your resume does not show what you were networked to be, and that's how Cam Ward slipped so under the radar to go number 1 overall as a 0-star recruit and a 0-star prospect going into this draft. Unbelievable. When the only word was Shedeur Sanders. All year. It was Shedeur Sanders is going to be a top 5 pick. So, and then the fucking prank call happens. That was so wrong.
It was wrong, but I found that fucking hilarious.
I laughed at first, but then I thought about it for a second, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, this kid is clearly being handed a huge plate of humility at this point in time. You know what I'm saying? Like, he decided to stay home on draft day, built himself his own draft room.
Yeah.
With his own brand. This is where I'm getting at, where he painted himself as above the company. Because all this was already going to be accommodative for you with your own wing inside Green Bay, Wisconsin, when we wanted you here at draft day. We wanted you here. You were going to have your own room for your family, for everybody to sit and be with you the day you got drafted. You said, no, I'm staying home. Had your own draft party, set up your own draft room with your own brand painted on the walls, not a single NFL logo in sight, except for the hats, but not a single NFL insignia anywhere. You see how that can hurt just a little bit? You're trying to sign on to a company, you're saying, I'm not going to show up to anything that's technically optional. Mm-hmm. I'm going to talk about my predecessor's legacy as if it was my own. My field of play is not as high as you're networking me. And I'm not going to show up to the most important interview of my life, which is draft day.
Man, I want to show up to a job interview with a posse of 10 people.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I wish.
I fucking wish. I get you on that call, CP. You be on there.
Yo, we roll out.
No, but honestly, though, you put that in such a way where it makes sense, too. Where it's like, why would teams want to have someone that doesn't necessarily care about them as a franchise or as a business and cares what they aim to do? And ultimately, yes, these teams are still businesses, right? They're still looking to make money. But the people that they choose for their team are the ones that represent them. Correct. And I think that the lack of willingness to be involved, I think that as a prospect, I do agree with you, that hurt his draft stock immensely. And I'm of the mind where I was really surprised about this, because even the day of draft, I even said I was surprised if he didn't go in the top 10, because I guess I'm just cynical enough to believe that nepotism prevails.
Usually, yes. But if you self-sabotage so much, nepotism can only do so much.
And I'm glad nepotism did not prevail.
Not this time.
Because I think that sticking at least with the theme that we're having today is, for draft day, Shedeur needed to learn how to lose. He needed to he needed to learn that teams, like, you're not as good as you think you are, and teams are willing to pass you up because they would rather draft these players before you. And there's, what was it? He was 100 and whatever the fuck.
155 or something
Yeah,
deep.
so
It was deep.
100. Yeah, close to Brady's number. Brady was 199.
Right.
But these teams are doing their homework, and like we said before at the start of this, like a lot of these teams picked the players that they felt was necessary, and no one really reached. Everyone kind of took the players that best fit into what they were trying to do. And I think that for Shedeur as a person, learn from this. The best thing you could do from that is to learn to be humble. And I think that he's going to be walking into a quarterback room in Cleveland.
Now, a 5-man full quarterback room, let's be honest, and he's playing day by day. Being drafted 5th round, you are not guaranteed anything. You can be told tomorrow to hand in your playbook.
Shedeur aside, Cleveland is looking to move off Deshaun soon. And because that contract is so hefty, the worst fucking contract in NFL history.
Probably one of the worst in sports history.
Probably, but it's probably the one for like at least in NFL, modern NFL history. Like it is so bad. They're looking to move off him. And at this point the Browns are like, look, we're going to have to keep him on at least for another year. After this year, they can cut him. They're going to have to eat some dead cap at some point, right? But they're looking like, look, they drafted two guys, Shedeur and I forget the other guy's name.
The kid from Oregon. I don't remember his name totally, but
yeah. You got
Did
Joe
you actually
Flacco.
See the video? I don't mean to cut you off. The video that came around. The kid, he's pretty sure he's Samoan. He was doing a bird call.
Mm-hmm.
And then like a falcon flew over him. They asked him like, where are you getting drafted? He goes, number 94 overall to the Cleveland Browns. Then the next clip I saw, it was him getting drafted number 94 overall to the Cleveland Browns. I was like, oh, ain't that some shit?
So Cleveland just drafted a psychic, which honestly they desperately need.
They need something.
They need a quarterback with psychic abilities that can also provide some telekinesis in there. But that's actually pretty funny.
I thought that shit was cool to watch. I was like, oh, that's cool.
That's pretty cool. So yeah, so Shedeur's walking into this, right, knowing that Deshaun's not going to be competition, right? You got a psychic in the room. You got Joe Flacco, and you got Kenny Pickett. Super Bowl winning Kenny Pickett.
Right. So you got a Hall of Famer and 2 Super Bowl champions.
And at this point, Cleveland's like, look, we just need one of you to work. And I don't know whether Shedeur is the right guy for it, especially, again, it's Cleveland. There's not many quarterbacks that succeed in Cleveland. I don't think any.
Been many.
Probably the best quarterback for
Otto
Graham, but Bernie Kosar was probably like the guy in the 80s for them. Like he was probably their best. Like Otto Graham and Kosar are like the two best, but they haven't had a reliable, stable quarterback since the 80s. So
right. Ridiculous.
So Cleveland is desperate at this point. And Cleveland, and it doesn't help that Cleveland just so happens to be in the AFC North, where you have 3 contending playoff teams that you're going to play at least twice a year. So 6 games between the Ravens, Steelers, and Bengals. Those are hard, right? Those are always hard. But, I mean, Jameis was able to steal wins from you and I this past season.
Fucking Jameis.
So it could happen, right? Joe Flacco had a good year a couple years ago. They're trying to get that magic back in there. But Cleveland is one of those teams where it's like they can't start the rebuild yet, but they're trying to at least get pieces to prepare for that rebuild.
Right.
And I think, too, I was really surprised that they were able to keep Myles Garrett because he requested
that surprised
trade.
The shit out of me.
And then they're like, but wait, we have all this money. And he's like, you know what?
I'll take it from you.
I'll take it. So I can't blame him on that part, but,
Look, we have all this money, so we'll just get a bunch of rookies. He was like, "I'll take that from you, and I'll be gone soon."
I want to go to a team and compete for a Super Bowl.
But money, but we have this money for you to stay, and he was like, you drive a hard bargain, championship or money.
But
I'm gonna take the money.
We'll take the money. But the Browns are desperate, and at this point, look, they're looking for anyone to be a sign of life for them. I mean, Nick Chubb is great back there. They got a lot of great players on the team, but the Browns are one of those where it's like, Shedeur, if you are what you think you are, and you're able to bring the Cleveland Browns to glory, it would be one of the greatest stories in football history. But odds are, probably not.
Listen, I'm all for an underdog story. Totally. I'm all for it. If you put the work in and you beat out a 5-quarterback room, one of which was drafted in your draft class just a couple picks before you, and you earn that QB1 spot, you'll prove a lot of people wrong, myself included.
Absolutely. Yep.
And I will humbly eat that. But, like you said, that is a hard task, especially with the players that are there. Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of, this is just my last thing with Shedeur. And this is just for you and I, Sifi, because you remember when we played Madden many years ago, right? But we did
before when?
I know, right? And we made quarterbacks and stuff, and we're like, you know what? Let's make it hard for ourselves. Let's go to let's pick a team that has never won.
A shitty team that has never won.
And it's like, let's go there. And then we start off with our 60 overall quarterback, and we do
the Browns.
So basically, this is kind of like the real life scenario of that.
Oh my god!
But
yeah, except that we didn't project them as first overall picks. We used to dump them to low draft picks on purpose. You didn't do this shit on purpose.
He didn't do it on purpose, but
or did he? Maybe he is trying to go for the ultra story.
Maybe he just set his career on hard mode, and you know what? Let's see where it goes.
Hard mode. He set that shit on impossible. Most people can't do that. What? Most people spend 4 years in the AFC East and retire. So enjoy yourself trying to get out of Cleveland, because by the end of the first year, you're probably going to be begging for help.
If you're playing, if he's playing,
he's still going to be practicing. He's getting his ass kicked.
But hey, you got to learn how to lose. And for Shedeur, you lost on draft day, but that doesn't mean that you're condemned to that.
Just keep chewing on that humility, man. It'll get you somewhere.
Absolutely. I love it, Sifi. There's just so much to unpack with the off season. It's so much to talk about too, and it just gets me so excited for this upcoming season.
Yeah. Do you have any final thoughts?
Man, I don't know. I'm gonna say no, but there's so many things I want to think about this upcoming season. So many teams, so many players, and I'm just so excited for it all. And I'm also excited to just begin this 6th season of Let's Talk Football with you, my friend.
Hell yeah, man. Well, with that, I'm gonna see us out then. Thank you guys. There you have it. There's our recap of the off season, little synapse of the drafts. My bit on Pittsburgh, of course. Please leave a like, a comment, share. Please, if you guys are trying to come on for an interview, come the schedule drop, please let myself or John know. We will get you on as soon as possible, and it should be fun. We are very excited for another year of Let's Talk Football, guys.